I can't stand coming to the Home Depot, but sometimes it's got to be done. I guess on Sunday they don't open up till 7, so I had to kill some time here. I was thinking how, like, as soon as I get my paycheck, it's gone, and I'm already thinking about 2 weeks down the road when I get another paycheck. So, like, there's a waiting game. There's all this suffering at work and waiting to get a paycheck that disappears almost immediately. But I was needing some stuff and a lot of stuff for the motorbike. My motorbike projects turned out to be super complicated. That's why I'm at Home Depot. I got to figure out a way to compress my shocks. So, but I was watching a thing about people looking for jobs and having a hard time finding jobs this morning, and all age ranges, all occupations. There's just a lot of people. They're all putting in a lot of applications and hardly getting any interviews. Kind of going through that same experience that I was going through, except for I thought that I was probably the only one. And it mostly had to do with me being an old man now and getting aged out, sort of, or just having that sketchy work history, But I just am thinking that, my mom's always talking about the end of days, and because I grew up a Jehovah's Witness, I always thought the end of days were around the corner, like there would be a big crevice in the earth that would swallow me up, or volcanoes, or earthquakes, like the Great Tribulation or Armageddon type of deal. But I think I've realized it's going to happen slowly. It's going to be this, like, where we all end up getting really poor. And then instead of just dying quickly or in some, tragedy, it's going to be a slowly unfolding tragedy of people getting hungry and desperate and homeless. And the number of people living in their cars is just going up exponentially, too, because of the price of the rent, and that 3 times, you got to make the 3 times the cost of the rent to be able to rent a place, those kind of rules. And the rental thing I always felt like was kind of crazy, how you're just paying somebody else's mortgage for them, and it's just like one of those how the rich get richer and the poor get poorer things. And even in that little town that I've been working in, you can tell when you've peeled into a rental neighborhood, because all of a sudden all the cars suck. There's a lot of beat up trucks and old cars, and maybe a car up on a jack, because everybody's got to, work on their own vehicles, as opposed to where the rich people live. There's, everybody's got a nice car and a nice yard. But as soon as you get into that rental neighborhood, there's weeds a popping, and it's just a whole different feel, and I always grew up in that rental type neighborhood, and it always seemed kind of normal to me. But just kind of seeing the neighborhoods next to each other, like being in one nice one and then being in one that sucks, it's like, oh, it's weird, like the class division. And it's weird how people don't really notice class division or talk about class division. Sometimes you'll hear about class envy, which is kind of a crazy concept. Of course you would be envious of the upper class and the nicer houses, the nicer cars, the nicer jobs, and but it seems as though everybody just accepts it. Like, you kind of learn it in high school, like, there's like the rich kid who gets to go skiing every weekend, and you gotta stay home and take care of your sheep for 4-H so you can sell them for your school clothes, and so it just seems kind of normal. You just accept, well, there's rich people, and then there used to be middle class people, and then there's lower class people, and but more and more the whole thing is just striking me as kind of crazy, and feeling like we need something's got to give or something's got to change. Like, I don't even know what or how, but I don't know how everybody's going to continue doing this monkey business, and that living paycheck to paycheck, and it's all been so normalized. It's like that social hierarchy, even that hierarchy I run into at work, where there's like, you have a manager, and then the big fat idea is the manager makes more money and tells you what to do, and you don't even know why exactly. Is it merit based? Maybe. I mean, there's a guy at work now who he's seems like at every job, at every construction job, and well, almost every job, there's one guy, foreman type, who just drives around in his white truck and doesn't really do anything, and but he acts super important, and he makes himself look busy a lot, like talking on the phone as though it's an urgent phone call, or but it's not always merit based. Like this particular guy, he got hired on there because he knew like the director of what's it called, public works or something like that, and so he ended up with this sweet position. But I can tell he's clueless about what he's doing. But he's got like, I won't say it's leadership skills or charisma, but he's got a sense of authority about him. And now, what do I mean by that? Well, he's kind of bossy. He hasn't been bossy with me, luckily. It seems like I make him slightly nervous for some reason. He's the guy who has all the ticks at the morning meetings and is always adjusting his hat and touching his nose and moving his paper and clicking his pen. But I was just watching his body language the other day. We were standing around in a group of men, and he stands with that cop pose, but it's more than the cop pose. Like, it's a wide stance, almost like it's military, but it's slightly more, like really settle into like a wide open V. And then I know, because I've done a lot of, well, let's say studying of body language, and that particular body language signals an authoritarian position or authority in general. And I was thinking back to, say, when I worked for Whitaker Construction, the day I quit there, the foreman that was shitty to me and the reason I quit, like a couple weeks prior, he was using that stance around the job site. And I asked one of the other guys, I remember I noticed it. And the reason I noticed it is because I've been through it before. But I seen him standing like that. I was like, oh, fuck, this guy's going to be trouble. And then I asked one of my coworkers, I was like, hey, is that the boss's son? Because I couldn't figure out why this guy would be so have that sense of power or something going on. I gotta try to nail that down a little bit better. But okay, so and then back when I was in Florida, I worked for a seawall construction company, and there was a younger guy, a foreman type guy, but he was the boss's son, and he had that same stance all the time. Like, he would come out to the job and then he would assume that like super wide open V stance, and cops do it when they're at attention. They have that thing, in the military guys, but it's more narrow. What I'm talking about, and just watch some of the guys in your life in groups that you might see, and just their body positions a little bit, and see who's standing like that, and I also think it's a sign of narcissism. And usually a narcissist has got a lot of vanity going on, and this particular guy, he's got like an ear ring, but it's not like a hoop on the outside. It's some kind of diamondy stud thing on the inside. And then he's got one of those beards that he like probably spends 45 minutes on every morning, making sure it's like perfect. It's like he's overly groomed, and it all kind of, it's that vanity thing, and then that narcissism, and then this position where he can just drive around all day and basically act like he knows what he's doing. Sometimes I'll walk by his office during the day and I can hear him talking to a woman. I think it's probably his wife, but he's all leaned back, he doesn't have his feet up on the desk. There must be a nurse stool or something underneath, but he's just like totally reclined back and talking to his wife and doing nothing, and then I've seen him come out and he'll grab a rake and act like he's gonna rake, and I seen him take like 5 strokes with the rake one day, and then I looked back over and he didn't have the rake. He was on his phone again. But I know he's not actually getting anything done on his phone. He does not need to talk on his phone. He just does that as a way to look busy and not do any real actual work, And it's just so annoying. It's so annoying. And then makes me think about that whole World of Men thing. Now, there's another guy there who has been around for a while and has kind of worked his way up. And he has a kind of a wide stance, but he's got actual leadership skills and he actually works. And so I kind of like him quite a bit. But I've been going through this thing where like I'll be in a group of men. We had to bring a bunch of picnic tables to the park for Memorial Day, and so the guy, the narcissist, was basically telling everybody what to do, and then the other guys were helping and whatnot, but there was a lot of weird dynamics at play there, and then like towards the end we were kind of standing around just kind of talking to each other while we were waiting on something, and that's when I noticed this guy's stance right for the second time. And it just got me thinking about, how do I relate to this group? How do I fit into this group? I'm like super low on the totem pole. I didn't have really anything to add to the conversation, but I also wasn't interested in the conversation. And so I sort of felt like an outsider, kind of like that same feeling I had back in high school, just, kind of being on the outside, not in like the jock group, not in like the cool kids group, just sort of a loner, and but just kind of hearing about these guys' lives, and they have RVs and they're going somewhere on Memorial Weekend, and I just kind of imagine, like, say, the narcissist in the rest of his life, and I just think, oh, it's weird how guys like that seem to thrive even though they're sort of shitty. I'm not really sure how to explain it, it's just, I don't know. And then thinking about the job thing some more. I know I'm really bouncing around here a lot. When I watch those videos of everybody having a hard time finding a job, it makes me feel scared. And then I think, oh man, I gotta just really appreciate this job that I have, even though it hardly pays me anything, and then not quit it while I'm looking, for another job. And then I was like, well, maybe the substitute teaching thing I should try for. And then, but more so, I've been thinking a lot about the handyman business idea. And so I think that I'm not even sure what the steps are. I mean, like, say that tile job, I'm still got that going, but the guy had temporarily ran out of money. And I'm going to go ahead and work this weekend coming up if I can get my motorbike running, which is probably not going to happen this weekend. So I'll be taking the bus and doing a lot of walking, which is going to add a couple hours to my commute. But I might just have to do it for a little while. But I think, well, and then, every time I think about the handyman business, I just think, well, what about my old truck, and it doesn't make a very polished, professional presentation, but maybe that's not that big of a deal. I don't really know about that part. If anybody out there has any thoughts on that, like this idea, like, could I operate a handyman business out of old Betsy here? Could I get a couple magnetic signs and put it on the old rust bucket? maybe, why not? It's worth a try, especially the magnetic sign thing because it's kind of cheap. Well, yeah. And then, even though I didn't want to do the substitute teaching thing, I think I should go ahead and try because I think there's still going to be a demand for that. But I think another thing that's happening is like, say during COVID, I noticed a lot of people doing DoorDash and stuff like that, but my car sucked too much to do that. And then now the people are getting laid off from their high-tech jobs in waves. They're trying to DoorDash and they're filling up, like, say, these Home Depot positions, or even like, say, the Walmart or the Costco. And so now there's this filter down effect of people that were like, sort of mid-level in their work world are having to step down into this underemployment world. And so they're taking up these other jobs that maybe would have worked for me or could have worked for me. And I don't know, man. I just really think we're headed for some tough times. I mean, just like really tough financial times with the price of food. And I mean, I've already kind of cut back on all the food stuff that I could cut back on, except for just eating less. I could eat less, But, well, I think that's all the thoughts I got this morning about the world. And now it's time to go in Home Depot. Now, why don't I like going in Home Depot? Well, there's like some weird stuff. Like, I don't like the lighting in there. I can't explain it exactly, but... And then the music, a lot of times that they have playing, I do not care for. It sort of bothers me, makes it hard to think, makes it hard to concentrate. And then the messages, like, especially the messages in Spanish, piss me off. Or messages about keeping your kids in the cart or keeping them away from climbing on things or whatever they say. And I don't know. I just don't love going in Home Depot. I think it's a pain in the ass. And then the self-checkout thing sucks. And, well, whatever. Who cares, right? All right. Well, thanks for listening to me.